right, listen up, folks, and welcome to the Music Scene Podcast. I am your host, Dave Kudrak. I recently had the pleasure of sitting down and having a conversation with Michael Songs. He is a singer-songwriter who plays all original music. He's got a popular live stream on YouTube and is currently putting together a collaboration to showcase original music in the South Jersey area. We talked a little bit about his background and his influences, as well as his writing process. He's written over 1,000 songs and approaches songwriting in a pretty unique way that I think you'll get a kick out of. We also get 2 performances at the end highlighting the songs that we talked about during our conversation, so make sure you stick around for that. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, or if you're driving, pay attention to the road, and enjoy the Michael Songs experience. So we are here. Well, let me ask you this. Do you go by Mike or Michael?
I go by Michael.
Or do you want to, or Michael Songs? Like, I mean, obviously I introduce you as Michael Songs.
I do kind of enjoy that people just call me Michael Songs now.
Nice.
Like, people walk in the door and they'll be like, oh, like Peter Scavello walks in and they're like, hey, Pete. And
right.
And Chuck M walks in, Chuck, and
yep.
Shay Arthur's Shay. And I walk in there like, Michael Songs.
Michael
and I'm
Songs.
like, oh, that's kind of cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like it. So question number 1, right? We're here at the Music Scene Podcast, and my guest today is Michael Songs. He's an original musician from the, I'm assuming, South Jersey area, but we will get to that. And is Songs your actual last name, or is that like a musician name you go by?
Oh, yes. My parents were Mr. and Mrs. Song.
Cool.
Cool. No, not at all. No.
You had me.
But,
you got me.
But that's the line we will go with. It's not far off, but
okay. But that's cool. That's a name you go by for your music career. So that's awesome.
It just fits.
Yep.
And at some of my gigs recently, I get behind the drums, and when I do that, I tell people I'm Michael Drums. So,
nice. I love that.
It just fits, and that way it catches. You'll always remember what's going on. Whatever instrument I'm on, people will start calling me, Michael Mandolin, probably.
So Chuck said that you're a hell of a drummer. I haven't been to a show yet where you've been drumming. So how long have you been playing? I know that's not, well, I don't want to assume anything, but every time I've seen you, you've been playing guitar, singing and playing guitar. How long have you been playing drums? Has the guitar been your main instrument? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, so I actually started on bass, technically. I always wanted to be a drummer, but I couldn't afford a drum set.
Okay.
And every year from like 1989 till 1992, every summer, right after school, my friends would sit around, and I grew up in Fairview, which is Camden, and we would sit around in the square. It's literally called the Square. It's in the center of town, and people would talk about what they wanted to do that summer, and I would always say, let's start a band. And no one was ever game until this one year. We had a new friend, Adrian, and he was like, well, I've been taking piano lessons, and my uncle and parents are going to get me a guitar.
Cool.
And I'm going to learn how to play guitar. So yeah, I'm game. Let's start a band. So I was like, sweet. But I still couldn't afford a drum set. And I only know things by proximity. So my brother had bought a bass, and he just learned like a few Metallica songs and then kind of shelved it. So I knew there was a bass in our house. So I was like, can I buy your bass? I have enough money for the bass. It didn't even occur to me to be like, go buy a guitar.
Right.
It's just like, there's a bass in the house. And here's some money.
Yep.
So I bought the bass and like figured out how to play the bass. And then like a year later, so like 1993, I bought a drum set and started playing. But I would always join multiple bands because I always wanted to be playing different instruments at the same time. So I would be in at any given time in the 90s in a band as a drummer, in the band as a bass player, in the band as a guitarist. And I always had to have at least one of them. I had to be the songwriter.
Oh, okay, cool.
So,
cool. You're an original musician now, right? I don't think I've ever seen you do a cover. Have you always been kind of all about original music? Have you ever done covers before, or been in any kind of cover band or anything?
No. When we were first learning how to play, my friend's uncle was teaching us a bunch of blues stuff. So we were like learning by playing blues songs. And whenever I was in bands, I didn't want to do any covers. So we would do like toss in like 2 or 3 covers. Sure. But they kind of had to twist my arm to do them. Yep. And I enjoy it. If I'm on drums, I'm fine to play almost anything because then I'm just playing drums. I'm not thinking about what's happening. But I just always love, for myself, the creative outlet of writing songs and what that means. And then when I meet other musicians, that's all I want from them. Like I like hearing cover songs. I'm not opposed to them or anything, but I love when I meet someone, I'm like, I want to hear what you write.
Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
I want to hear what creative thing comes out of you. That's the first and most important thing to me. So even if you're a cover artist and I meet you and that's all like you do, but I'll be like, do you have any originals? Let me hear them, right? Because that's going to tell me more about this person than
Sure.
how good they've done with covers, how long they've been playing those same covers, or you know, even if they've tweaked them and really made them their own, like that's cool and all. But when you have to pull something out of the ether, you know, what do you create?
Right.
I'm an introvert.
Okay.
So I'm really good one-on-one conversation.
Right.
And you get me in a room with 3 or 4 people, even if I know them all really well, I'm usually very quiet. So like meeting someone new, I can't do the conversation thing to like learn them, but play me a song you wrote, and within those 3.5 minutes, I'm like, I know a lot about you already.
That's cool.
Like just from that.
That's cool. So recently at Dr. Brew Little's in Maple Shade, you had a gig there. I think I've seen it posted as like a song swap. I was really happy to see that you were able to put something together that was centered around original music. Tell me a little bit about how that kind of came about.
Yeah, so I mean, one of our things, we always talk about it, for me, I'm 100% original music, and that's all I want to play. But in this community, I've met a bunch of other awesome songwriters, performers, covers, originals, the whole thing. And there's a bunch like that I want to play music with, and that I love their songs right off the bat. You know, Shay Arthur and Chuck M, the two of them, as soon as I met them, I'm like, I want to do things with them. And I know their originals already from hearing them, and I love them, and I want to hear them more often. So when I got that gig at Brew Little's, you know, I thought I can do one of two things. I can keep doing the solo gigs where you just play and, you know, hope enough people show up and it goes and they're interested in your thing. Or I can take that opportunity to do what I keep getting into at some of the open mics, where I'm like, I want to coordinate with people. So I was like, I just made this giant list, which you're on, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I have this really long list of people that I'm like, if I want to do this gig the way that I'm picturing it, let me think of the people first that I want to have them learn, at a minimum, they learn one of my original songs to play and sing with me, and I learn one of their original songs to play and sing with them. And we'll put this night together where that's the whole night. The whole night is original music, and we're all playing on each other's songs. That's kind of the goal for it. So I reached out to 3 people. I was expecting either, you know, maybe someone passes like, not really interested, or just they already have a gig that day, because I had the date already. They all said yes. So I'm like, all right, let's set up a practice. Let's work on some material, see how that goes, because I'm going to have to learn a lot.
Sure.
You know, for the gig coming up. That went well. Reached out to the next 3 people. They all said yes immediately. I was floored and humbled, and like, I can't believe how quickly people want to do this.
Right.
And then we started doing some practices on my back deck, and instantly it became what I really wanted to happen, but thought wasn't going to happen until 2 or 3 versions of this gig down the road. I wanted everyone playing on each other's songs together.
That's cool.
Yeah. So just by us showing up at the same time, that started happening. So at that gig, not only did we have me and Shay Arthur, me playing and singing a couple of his songs with him doing it with me, we stayed up there. Chuck M, slowly, each song we worked on, he turned into the bass player. He was like, well, I'll play bass on that. His own songs that he is the singer and guitar player on. He was like, Shay can play that one and sing that one. You can play that one and sing that one. I'm gonna, and he ended up being the bass player for the whole night. We brought Chris Kelly in, who, you know, we know he plays guitar. He plays all the instruments as well. He came and he was our percussionist for the whole night.
That's cool.
And I got on drums for maybe half of the songs that we did together. I was on drums, so there were elements that Jim Brennan, we had him play lead, brought electric guitar. He was putting leads on stuff. So we turned into a band, and that's kind of what I had pictured.
That's
and
cool.
I thought it was going to take a lot longer to get there, and we got there real quick.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep expanding material, and we're going to keep bringing in more people to be like, okay, we'll have special guests come in.
Right.
We'll learn a couple of your songs. You learn 1 or 2 of ours that are there. And then we'll just keep doing those kind of shows. Book them. It'll be easier to get us in. There's as we know, there's lots of places to play gigs.
Sure.
But as a solo musician, a lot of times they put you in a certain spot.
Yeah.
And some of the places will say, well, we only give you Thursday nights. And then you're like, well, it's kind of hard to get people out on a Thursday night.
Right.
And we would love to have Saturday. Can we have Saturday? Oh, we keep that for bands.
Yeah.
Well, so now if we're doing this, we can go, well,
Yep.
now we're a band. Can you want to give us a Saturday night? And then there's a bigger draw as well, because there's anywhere from 4 to 7 of us.
Sure, and you've all
playing the same gig.
You all have friends and stuff that might come out and all
Right.
that stuff, and then as word gets out, of course, you know. Do you have a vision for kind of what that is? Is it going to be kind of like the Michael Songs project, and then you'll swap people in and out, or is it just going to be kind of, you know, hey, I'm going to do this. Who wants to join me?
Yeah. So I think we're going to come up with a name for it.
Oh, okay.
We don't have it quite yet. I'm going to speak on their behalf just because they said it's kind of cool. So I believe it's going to be me, Shay, and Chuck as sort of we'll refer to it as like the house band.
Nice.
For each one of those gigs. We'll set up the gigs together, and then each time we'll bring in the people. There's a bunch of other people who may or may not be at every single one of them.
Right, I gotcha.
But the idea will be the three of us sort of in that core, especially just because that night I realized right off the bat when Chuck was playing bass the whole night and I was on drums, I was like, we could just do a whole show where I'm the drummer, we've got the bass player, we've got someone playing guitar who can sing all the songs, and then just keep bringing in other instrumentalists, singers, and just it elevated all of the songs that night.
That's cool.
That's cool. And to have all those musicians, nobody overplayed. It was phenomenal. Like, you know how hard
that is,
Which is kind
of unheard of,
Yeah. I was like, everyone did what, like, fit the song for every single song. Lane, And I was like, this is rare. You don't get that often.
Right.
So I was like, I definitely want to do more of that. So, yeah, it won't be Michael songs each time. You know, like, we'll make it more of a collaborative, at least between the three of us, and bring in as many people as we can and just keep expanding that, you know. It's a great way for us in this community of people that we all know each other. We all show up to the open mics. We all show up to each other's gigs. You know, let's just keep expanding on that and to showcase more of what we all do and to elevate that. Because we're bringing in, you know, we had Jeff with us. See Jeff Sing is what one of his names is for Facebook. We had him and we had Carly Hubble in, right? They're singers. They haven't written any music, but like so, it's you're not relegated to we're only bringing in people with original music.
Right.
You can come and be part, but it's going to be part of somebody on stage's original.
Oh,
song.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I like. That's something. It's new, right? I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. At least not at a local level. You know, I mean, in Nashville, they've got, you know, writers rounds where you'll get 3 or 4 or 5 musicians up on a stage and they all kind of sit on a stool and everybody's watching, and then they maybe tell a quick story about their original song and then they play it by themselves and then they move to the next musician. This collaboration thing that you did the other night sounds like a really cool idea, and I hope it gains some momentum and becomes something. I think it's really cool. I used to be in an original rock band years ago, like 20 years ago. And I think we only, in the 2 years that we were together, we got like 5 gigs because especially back then, nobody wanted to hear original music.
No, same. I took like a 20-year hiatus from sharing my music and from playing out. But in the 90s, we played a lot of gigs and it was always original bands. And the difference was the cover bands were getting gigs at the venues with some sort of stage, even if it's just a staged area and a sound guy set up, and all the gigs we were getting enough gigs, but it was all the ones where you had to move tables out of the way and bring your own PA and set it up. So it was like,
and then sometimes you had to pay to play there, you know. We had a gig one time. We ended up canceling it, or it got canceled, I can't remember, at the Crocodile Rock up in like Trenton or whatever. I can't remember exactly where it was, but North Jersey somewhere. And they said you have to buy tickets up front, and then you can sell those tickets for whatever price you want. You can try to make a profit on them, or you can just give them away for free, whatever, but you have to buy 50 or 100 tickets first up front. The venue wasn't going to pay anything, you know.
I did do one gig like that. It was at the WHYY Forum Theater. And it was 4 or 5 bands. I forget what they called it. It wasn't really like a battle of the bands. It was more like a showcase kind of thing. But they had tickets. And so we were naive to the whole thing. They were like, you know, you have to sell tickets, and they wanted each band to sell. I forget if it was 15 or 30 tickets. So, like, you know, we just sold the tickets. And then when we got there, and they had all the bands lined up in this hallway in the back. So there was like a set drum set. So you just had to bring like your cymbals and stuff. So we're all sitting there in a row and chatting with the other bands, and somebody at some point just went, well, how many people just like paid for all the tickets? And they all raised their hands except us, and we're like, what do you mean? So when we went out there was almost nobody in the stands except for like the 30 people that we brought.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So like when we were playing, it was the 30 people we brought, the 5 other bands sitting out there, and like maybe they had a handful of people with them. But I was like, oh, that's like a thing, and that was the first time I heard of pay to play. And I was like, so technically I did a pay to play, we just didn't realize it.
Right.
We were just like, oh, they want us to help them sell tickets to this event.
That's a shame. I know you've got this live stream on YouTube that you do several days a week. Let's talk a little bit about kind of what you got going on YouTube.
Sure. So I started out, 20-year hiatus I took. In the year 2000, I had a chat with two other friends who are musicians. We had never been in a band, all three of us together, but I was in bands with both of them, multiple bands with both of them. So we were having a conversation, three of us together. We were like, we're tired of lugging gear all over the place. We're tired of playing the same songs every night. We're tired of the practices consisting of working on a set for the show. We just like to write and record. And all three of us realized at the same time, wait, that's what we all want right now. So we just quit everything else. And for the last 24 years now, the three of us have gotten together pretty much every Thursday night. We write songs, we record them, we never play them again. And I refer to it sometimes as my secret band because we have 11 albums.
Wow.
And it's out on streaming, but we don't tell anybody.
Wow,
So,
that's
like,
pretty amazing.
Yeah, if you stumble across it, you know, there's a bunch of material there. So we did that, and it was just all I needed, apparently, for that 20 years was just a creative outlet. You know, my favorite thing to do, write songs, write parts, play different instruments, record something, and then just don't ever play it again.
Right.
But in about 3 years ago, I wrote in just about 18 months, I wrote about 70 songs.
Wow.
And I was like, this is too much for this one band for me to process all that I need to do. So I told Maria one day, I'm like, I didn't let people take my picture for 30 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm super introverted. So the me that you see now took a lot of work. You know, didn't want to be on camera, didn't want to do all this, hadn't shared my music in 20 plus years. And I come to Maria and I'm like, I want to live stream on YouTube.
Yeah.
And being the awesomeness that she is, she just goes, yeah, all right. And figured out everything that we needed to figure out to do it, you know.
Yeah.
How to get there. You had to have 50 subscribers before you could do that. So it's like, oh, well, let's record some songs with the phone real quick so we have some content so people will come and subscribe and then we can start doing it. So we started doing that, though. I just decided I wanted to do the first and third Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern every month. And we did that for about 6 months. And somewhere along the line, I started doing this thing that I called Sunday sets, where I would just sit down, because I was doing it anyway. I was sitting down and I was playing some songs in our dining room, kind of looking out at the trees and just really enjoying myself.
Cool.
So I thought I should start recording these, just record like 3 songs and put them up as a video, just to put more content on the page. And I was doing that for a while, and people started tuning into that every week. And then one week, it was like 100 and some degrees that week. We didn't have air conditioning downstairs. It's a 100-year-old house. And I was like, I can't do it. I kept trying to record the thing. I'm sweating. I'm forgetting all the songs. I'm playing horribly. So eventually they're like, you know, the live stream is kind of easier.
Sure.
Let's go live this Sunday instead of doing the set. So we did that, and like a whole bunch of people showed up.
Nice.
And then they were all telling me we like the live Sunday. So we started doing that, and for about a year and a half now, every Sunday, 12 noon Eastern, we go live on YouTube for about an hour. And we only missed one, and it was the day that I drove up to Brooklyn to record the direct-to-vinyl with Lisa Ball Studios.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the only one we missed. We were hoping to live stream from there, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, we went live for like a minute and a half, and just to be like, we're here, we made it. Sorry guys, now I got to start recording.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the only one we missed in the. So we've done whatever it was up till that 54 straight weeks of that, skip 1 week, and then every week since, and first and third Wednesdays. Yeah, that's
great. So for those who haven't seen it yet, what is that live stream? What's it consist of?
Yeah, so on the Sundays, the Sundays and Wednesdays are a little bit different. Both of them are just 100% original music. You know, I play my songs. On Sundays it's an hour. One, because, you know, we just want to keep it kind of quick and short, but also another person in our YouTube community has a show that starts right after ours.
Oh, cool.
So we like to, as best as we can, not step on each other's toes when we know someone else is doing a live. So on that Sunday, I'll put together a set anywhere from 9 songs to 15 songs, something around that range. And we'll play them. We'll chat a bit. Maria usually giggles at me or tells me to... Well, one of our favorite things is apparently everyone now can tell from her pointing it out when I'm reading the live chat while playing. So she used to tell me to stop reading the live chat. Now everybody knows, so every once in a while I'll be reading the live chat, and it used to only be her that would put in the live chat, Stop reading the live chat.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. Now other people do it if they see me like,
oh, that's so funny,
looking down.
That's
yeah,
hilarious.
it's like, when do you most often mess up? When you start reading. I stopped a song once a couple months ago. in the middle of a song, I literally stopped and was just like, that sounds delicious. They were like having a conversation about some breakfast meal, like one of the persons.
Okay.
And I'm literally reading the thing while doing a song. And I cut the song off. And then someone pointed out when I said it, I was like, I stopped because it's delicious. I want to like read a little bit more of what's going on. Like, you stopped a song for that? And I'm like, it's our live stream. I guess we'll do what we want.
Yeah, right.
So we try to do that, have a little bit of levity in there, not just, not just play my songs and out.
Yeah.
So a little bit of humor, a little bit of giggles, a little bit of sharing what is going on in the community, both on YouTube and out in the open mic scene and in the local area. And then our Wednesdays, we go live for anywhere from 2 hours to 3.5 hours.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
We started telling people jokingly that we just played until I got hungry, but that really is what happens. We start at 7 o'clock. I have a set list usually of somewhere between 27 to like 35 or 40 songs on the set list, and I'll just keep going. But if I get hungry, I'll stop.
Very cool.
So.
Very cool. Awesome. So, so I want to talk a little bit about how you got started, or I guess maybe really your influences and your style as well. This is not a video podcast, so you're going to have to rely on what I'm describing to you. But every time I've seen Michael, he is always dressed to the nines, right? He's got a shirt and tie and a jacket on, and he looks great. And it's one of the only times I think I've seen him with his hair down, so I'm super excited about that. So I guess my question would be kind of who are some of your influences? Who do you listen to? Who are you inspired by, and all that? Like, give me some background on that.
Yeah. So I listen to pretty much every genre possible, and influences are always changing. But when I first started writing songs heavily in the early 90s, my biggest influences were Ani DeFranco, Bob Dylan, and Louis Armstrong. And probably for about 15 years, just listened to those three heavily. I would listen to all kinds of other stuff, but constantly those. Ani DeFranco and Bob Dylan, just the sheer volume of their catalog.
I don't think I've ever heard of Ani DeFranco.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Okay.
So her guitar playing is the biggest thing that influenced me from her. My friend in 1993 brought over Spin Magazine. Remember when they used to come with the little CD samplers in them?
Right. Yep.
So he brings it over, he takes the CD out, hands it to me, and I might be wrong about the track number, but he just said like, track 13, this is your thing.
Right.
Like, not even whether he liked it or not, but he's like, you're going to do this. I put it on, and it was Not a Pretty Girl from Ani DeFranco.
Okay.
Instantly fell in love with what was happening rhythmically and with the guitar playing, and then just dove head into her catalog. And every album that came out from her after that, I just got super into, and watching her play live, the way that she plays the guitar, because I play guitar kind of like a drummer. I'm percussive and rhythmic, and the parts that I write, I'm trying to incorporate what I hear as an entire band into the guitar playing, so a little bit of the melody will be in there. If you listen close enough, you'll hear what would be the kick drum and the snare happening on how I decide to strum and play and pick. That's all from her. And then from Bob Dylan, just the sheer volume of lyrics and writing song inspired me to just keep writing. And I had someone ask me early on, like, what is your goal with writing? Is it to write the greatest song ever, or is it just to have quantity, right? That's kind of what they were asking. And I was like, both, right? Like, I'm not aiming for any one specific thing, but it's a creative outlet. Like, so what comes out of me some days is a 1.5 minute sort of lighthearted vibe. And some days it's a 4.5 minute dark story where the character might not make it through the song. Like, I just keep writing, and I want each one to be as good as it can be, but I won't spend months working on one song to make it the quote unquote best song ever. I try to make that the best version of what that thing is. It's almost like a journal, right? You're journaling, and mine aren't all personal. I write a lot of story songs where I develop a world and a character, and I write from their perspective.
Oh, cool.
But I still want it to be good, but not, I don't want to spend months on it perfecting it, because I like to just take them out and start playing them live, and then they slowly kind of morph over the months and years that you play them. And that's one of my favorite things too, seeing what can change about a song, whether it's just by my mood the day I played it, or sometimes a mistake. Sometimes you just hear something and you're like, I'm going to go to this other chord. I'm going to change the key today and see what happens. So I just love doing that. I love exploring music as much as possible, and songs. Once it's written, doesn't mean it's done. Even if you record it doesn't mean it's done, right? That recording is just a snapshot of how you decided to document it at that time. You can still change that song moving forward. You can do it different every single time you play it.
Yeah, that's cool. I know we had a comment conversation on Facebook, I think, about kind of that same thing where, my very first song I have ever written and recorded literally took me 10 years to write it. And then for a long time it was missing something, but I didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up adding a bridge to it. So from start to recording it and releasing it was literally 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I made a comment about, man, that's a lot of wasted time. That song could have been out 10 years ago, and sometimes done is just better than perfect. And you were like, yeah, this is kind of how I do it. I get those songs out, and if they want to change into something after they're recorded and released, then so be it. That's how they live, and I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it, So I appreciate that.
Yeah, because how cool would it be if someone gets into your stuff and they can look back at a catalog and hear an earlier version of a song that they love completely different.
Right.
And they can see sort of the growth and change of not just that song, but you as a person and performer, which is another reason I love Bob Dylan and Ani DeFranco. Every time I've seen them live, they bring a new element to what they're doing. So for Bob Dylan, it's always, what is he doing now? Sometimes he's like, oh, I'm fancying the keyboard now. So on this tour, he's playing keys a whole bunch, and he'll play the songs but not like you know them. And some people get upset about that. Sure. They're like, I want to hear. I'm like, well, you have the record at home. Why do you want to hear it like the record? I want to hear what he wants to do with it right now.
Right.
And Ani DeFranco, I saw her 3 years in a row, and each year there was different components of the band that she was playing with. There was a different bass player. She had Sarah Lee for a while, and then she changed over to Jason Mercer. And just these different vibes came out and all this different energy underneath the song. And I'm like, it's still the song. I still recognize the song. But from what the band, she has horns this year. So that horn section gave her a different energy. So then she gave a different rhythmic pattern. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want to keep seeing, artistic growth.
Yeah.
And you don't always necessarily need new songs to do that. You don't have to keep writing when you want to do something new. You can just keep adapting your new material. But you can always go right back to how it was before. There's no rules.
Sure.
Nobody said you've played that song with a horn section now and you jazzed it up a bit. Now it stays that way. You can, the very next night, you can go back and play it solo acoustic and bring the vibe way down. Deliver it how you want to deliver it.
Yeah, that's cool. I dig that. I like that a lot. Because sometimes I get very set in my ways and I'm like, okay, this is how this song should be, and then that's how I play it all the time. Even the cover songs that I do, I'm always like, oh, I got to get pretty close to the original. I like your take on that. That's interesting. About your songwriting, right? I mean, you're a very prolific songwriter. I mean, I think I have no idea how many songs you have out or have written, but it certainly sounds like a lot, especially if you include the secret band. So, what does your process look like? I know you said it's kind of whatever comes out, but. Do you think of lyrics first? Do you think of a melody first? Do you write chords or whatever? What's that look like?
So that part is different every time. And over the years, I have written thousands. It's in the thousands as far as songs go. And I could probably still bring up and recall somewhere in the hundreds of them. Every once in a while, there'll be a song from 20 years ago that I'm like, oh, I remember how to play and sing that one right now.
That's amazing, yeah.
But I like to write and move on a lot of the time too. So to write, it's different all the time. They come to me in different ways, and I really like writing, starting from different points. Sometimes there'll be a melody that I hear. Sometimes there'll be just a line or a lyric or something someone said. But the most steady thing that happens to me, whatever the prompt is that happens, whether it's something I see, something I hear, a movie I watch, a conversation I have, a line that somebody says, all at once I picture this sort of entire world. It's not always different from our world. It's not like fantasy world, but I picture this entire world and I've chosen a character, what their perspective is from. And I can go through everything of I know what shirt he's wearing, and I know that the cuff on the right sleeve is frayed, and he can feel those frayed little threads touching his hand every time he walks down the street. Well, he's walking down the street. Now I know the stride that he takes. I know the pace that he walks. None of that has to be in the song, but it all develops the language of this person.
Wow.
I know what they're wearing. I know what their history is. I know what their friends are. I know the people that I've decided they're going to interact with in this song. You never even have to reference another person in the song. But if they're talking in their head about someone else in their life, I have to know who that person is. I don't just make it all up. I have to feel that. So I'm writing from all of that person's perspective. You know, how you're there's still always you in there, because as much as you want to remove that and think of everything from a person, you're still sort of using your own motivations and intentions behind stuff. But the more you put yourself in some other person or some other perspective's situation, you can view things differently, and then you can say things differently.
That's very cool that you kind of come up with the whole setting, even though it's may or may not be in the song, but you've got this whole setting of the characters that are in the story and all that stuff. I don't think I've ever really thought about that. When I'm writing, I usually just kind of think like, all right, where's my start, where's my end, and how do I get there? Now, because you've got this whole little world in a song that may or may not make it to the lyrics, do you get feedback from people where you can tell like, oh yeah, they really interpreted that song way different than I was thinking when I wrote it? Or does it match up quite a bit?
Sometimes I get that. Sometimes I don't like to share the stories because I want people to be able to take their own interpretation. So there's that fine line of people enjoying hearing how and why you wrote it and what it's about, and also allowing them to have their own vibe. But I'd say the most often thing I get is people assuming that everything someone writes is about them. So I have a story that I wrote. There's this thing called the 7 sins of memory. There's 7 different sins of memory, and they all apply to different situations. So going over that as an exercise, I came up with this story. When I was a kid, there was a girl about a grade or two ahead of me, and I remember hearing that her house burned down. I don't remember. I was not there. I was not outside looking at the thing, but just from the descriptions of everybody talking about it and the fact that I knew what the house was, a brick row home in Fairview, picturing all of the stuff, I could literally picture myself as if I was there. And it's called misattribution if you then take on someone else's story as your own, like picturing yourself there. So I wrote this story from the perspective of like an 8-year-old girl, and her house. The song's called Flames on South Octagon, and her house is on fire, and it's all these things about her in the moment trying to get out, you know, and it starts, the song actually starts with her outside of the house when they've already gotten her out, and she's looking at the house, and she's got her bare feet because pajamas, she's standing on the cold ground, like all these things going on, and elements of, at first she's just thinking about her stuff. She's like, oh, I couldn't go back inside to get my things I wanted. And then it occurs to her when she pictures that she doesn't know where her parents are.
Oh, man.
So then she thinks,
it's brutal.
Right. Like, you know, I didn't get to go back. Like, I don't get to choose who made it out or not. And did they make it out? So there's all these elements going on in that song for me, like writing from that perspective. And then people are like, oh, were you in a fire? I'm like, no.
Right.
Like I wrote this, so that I get that more often. I have songs like Storm Chaser that is about me. We went down, we watched a storm come in over the ocean. Some songs are about me, some songs are purely character, but I deliver it entirely from it. And I never state that that's a girl. Like there's no language that says I'm a she or whatever. So you know, I just take from the character's perspective and speak as they would speak.
I think that's a really great compliment, though. I would interpret that as you're delivering it in a very honest way. If people say, oh man, were you in a house fire? Then you must be delivering it in a very honest way that people like believe it. I was doing one song at a gig, and it was one of my handful of originals, and it's about my dad, and it's written from his perspective of being an alcoholic. But I didn't.
Firm Grip.
Yeah, Firm Grip. Yeah, thank you.
Love that song.
Thank you. And but most of the time I introduce this song and say, my dad had his struggles and blah blah blah. But this one particular time I didn't. And then when I got done playing it, somebody in the audience was just like, do we need to call somebody for you, Dave? So I just thought they thought it was about me. I was like, no, that's about my dad,
Yeah. No, I had a similar experience. I was doing handyman work. I had a client who, once I released a Halloween song for, a YouTube friend of mine was doing special shows and always asked me about songs, and I didn't have any. So I started just writing songs for the shows that he would have. He's like, I got a Halloween one coming up. So I wrote a song called Unhuman, and it's about this like cute little monster he's just trying to make friends with humans, but because he looks like a monster, they're very timid about it. So he's having his struggles, and then he finally, gets some friends, but it turns out when he gets hungry, he has to eat humans. So he ends up eating his friends. But I delivered it from the monster's perspective, and it's every day when I get up, I think about just giving up, like this whole process.
Sure.
So the client, and she saw the video, but she asked me, she was like, oh, I saw the song. I really like that. "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh no, it's from the perspective of this little monster." Like, that's not me.
Man, let's see. We've covered this original music song swap project that you've got kind of in the works, or at least in the beginning of it. We've covered YouTube and what you've got going on over there. I know you did that custom vinyl through Least of All Records. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, up in Brooklyn. How did that come about? Like, just kind of give me some details on that and how that went.
Yeah. So I've entered the NPR Tiny Desk
contest.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you about that too.
Yeah, the last 2 years in a row. What I expect to get from anytime I enter a contest like that is to meet more songwriters.
Right, networking.
Whether it's locally, nationally, or worldwide. So like when I enter this contest, I don't enter them being like, I want to win this thing and get whatever prizes off it. I'm thinking, this is going to bring me to some other community of people doing a similar thing to me. So that's sort of what happened in some of I've met a lot of people through doing those types of things. But right after I did the one this past year, I recorded a song called The Line for that Tiny Desk contest. And Least of All Studios actually reached out to me right after that came out and said, we have this direct to vinyl thing. We'd really like you to do it. And I was like, yeah, it sounds like a really cool concept. And obviously, like most of us, when someone reaches out to us first, our first thought is like, right, is it real? But we were also really, really busy at the time. So I was like, I'm interested, but, I have to wait a little bit. And the woman's name is Emily, and she reached out every month following up with me.
Oh, cool. That's nice.
Which I thought was fantastic. And they were great through the entire process. And I kept being like, still interested, we need to wait till, XYZ. And she would just keep checking in, which was awesome. It reassured me that they actually wanted me to do it, and that it wasn't just some random reach out.
Right.
And then we kept meeting other people that had done it, which reassured me anymore. When I talked to Check M about it, he was like, Dave did it last year. It was a great experience. We met a few people at different gigs just when I started to talk about it. They were like, oh, we did it. It's fantastic. So that's what happened. They had reached out to me about doing it. Timid at first, both because is it real and why would they want me to do it? But then will I sell enough records, right? Like who, there's always, we all have that sort of imposter syndrome and insecurity thing.
Absolutely.
Like
and it's not really cheap either. For one song, it's kind of expensive, but you really reach out to your network and your support group. And thankfully mine came through.
Yeah. I think we ended up with about 20.
Okay.
And
nice. I think I had 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, one, it makes you feel great that people are willing, because the same thing, it seems like a high cost for one, but then when you think about what you're getting, like I view it's not even the song, and I did record different versions of the song for people so that it was unique, and you get to leave a personal message on the beginning of the vinyl for them. But to me, it was more like it's a unique, collectible, one-of-a-kind, custom piece of memorabilia that you could have from someone that you love. So that's more what I was hoping to get across to people. Like, this is what you're getting. You're not paying for one song, because obviously you can come to my live stream and hear 30 some songs. You can come out to a free show at a brewery and hear a bunch of the songs. It's about getting that unique, one of a kind thing. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I did that. And so I looked through, they have that catalog of what people have done in the past, and you'd see some people just did whatever their single that was coming out, they would make that available and record like whatever 15 that they sold. And I just looked at Maria and I was like, I want to do the whole thing. We've got, I think at that point, 60 songs I was sharing on YouTube. I was like, I want to do the whole thing.
That's awesome.
How do we make that happen? So we made a list that was 10 long. We picked 9 songs. We had some of my live stream viewers help. We did like some polls every once in a while. Like,
cool.
What songs, what are the most popular ones? What do people request often on my live stream? So we came up with 9. And then the 10th line said, pick your favorite Michael songs. Oh, cool. So people could pick things that weren't on the list, and then it also didn't give them an overwhelming, here's a 60 song list to choose from, because that can be overwhelming too. So here's 10. So we ended up with quite a few different songs, and a few of them multiple people requested.
That's awesome.
But
very cool.
I was just like, there's 60 options out there for you. Anything you want, I will do it for you.
That's fantastic. That's great. Yeah, I recorded 1 or 2 extras, and I have them at home. I'm gonna given to my daughters like later when they're kind of old enough to appreciate it, you know. We
did the same, not to give to your daughters, but just to hang on to. They can have them if they want them.
Well, they met you the other day. They'd probably be super psyched to get one.
I'll sign it for them.
All right, sounds good. I never once thought I'd have like a vinyl album, even like the single, right, with one of my original songs on it, and then like, you go through the process of recording it, and it's a super cool, recording studio with
Yeah.
all the vinyls on the wall and stuff. And then when I had one to take home with me, and I was like, this is like one of the coolest thing I think that's ever really happened to me, like music wise, it's like I'm actually literally holding one of my songs in my hand. It was kind of mind boggling.
And just sit there smiling.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, can you get that across to other people? You know what I mean? Like you're sitting there giddily looking at this little piece of vinyl, right?
Yep.
And what are you so happy about? Like, this is me. I put part of me on this, and someone else wanted one too. Like,
right. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what else you got going on? Do you have any other platforms or projects or anything aside from like the stuff we talked about already?
Just trying to line up more. I mean, I can look over at my very important manager. What are the
First tour?
Oh, yeah, technically we're doing a tour. We're going up to Michigan for a friend of ours' 90th birthday party.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to play a few songs at the party, I've been told. But then we also have some YouTube friends that set us up with a gig there. So I'm going to get to play.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, a live show with one of
cool.
my good friends from YouTube, meet him in person, and he'll play some, I'll play some.
Wow.
And we have one, another great honor. He was the first person to cover one of my songs.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
He learned how to play the line and played it for us on one of the shows that I was running last year on YouTube.
Very cool.
And so I think we're going to play that one together.
All right. So what song are you going to play for us today?
Yeah, that's a big question. I changed my mind 4 times during this conversation. I was starting to think Flames on South Octagon because we talked so much about the song.
Whatever you want to do.
Sure. So Flames on South Octagon, it was written from an exercise about one of the sins of memory, which is misattribution, which you can hear someone's story enough that you take it on as your own, which I do often in songwriting, but did this specifically for this song. From a story that I actually knew of someone, a girl who there was a fire at her house, and people told me about it so much that I could picture myself in this scenario. So I wrote a song about it from her perspective. It's called Flames on South Octagon.
I can feel the heat upon my face. I can feel the cold ground through my feet. Everything I have turning to ash as I watch on in disbelief. There's no running back inside to choose what will survive. I will be thankful for my life a little later on. See the lights up on the brick. Through the smoke it's getting thicker, flashing red and blue, but I don't see you. And there's no running back inside to choose who will survive. I will be thankful for my life a little later on. Monday morning comes, I was overwhelmed. Before the morning bell, my friends gathered around. They all want to know what happened back inside. I can't look them in the eye, 'cause I don't really know. It all went down so fast, in minutes it was done. Recounting smudged and blurred between what I recall and what I was told. But here it goes. I could hear the shouting down below, calling everyone to get outside. I couldn't make it to the stairs, there was too much smoke. I could hear the burning carpet fibers, the taste of charcoal in my throat. They called me to my window to jump, oh, to jump. I pushed through broken glass, now I'm sitting on the edge. that old window pane, the one with all the peeling paint. I feel the heat upon my back and the cold air on my face. I know all this will take a leap of faith. Falling so fast for so long, the landing was harder than I thought. Ooh, safely wrapped in the stranger, she kept me so calm. Ooh, I was on full display, broken heart on my sleeve when the firemen came. There's a north wind spurring them on.
Very nice. Very nice. You want to do one more? You can do
Sure,
one more if you want.
absolutely. So this is Unhuman. I wrote this for Chad Freeman's Halloween Hootenanny, not this year, but the year before it. And it's about a cute little monster who's just trying to make friends. And when he finally makes friends, the unfortunate part is that he gets hungry. He has to eat humans. So every time he makes a friend, he ends up having to eat them, and then starts that whole painful process of making friends all over again.
Every day when I get up, I tie this flesh onto these bones. I hang this skin and hope it looks human. Try my best at fitting in, although it isn't happening. A smile, I'm mimicking and losing. Does everybody know? Can everybody see? Underneath this mask, can they see me? Every day when I get up, I think about just giving up. But this hunger starts building up, and I'm moving out the door into crisp fall air. I smile and wave, nobody cares. I catch your eye, you back away, I'm unhuman. It's visceral, conditional. Your fear is real. my next meal.
Right. I love it. Excellent.
Thank you.